Welcome to the Soulard Technology Vanderbilt SMS training session. Today we'll be looking at System Manager, specifically for programming a new reader. So we'll open up System Manager from the main launcher page. System Manager will always open up in the Areas and All Areas window. So you can see all the areas that you have in your system. So the first thing that we will do when we are programming a new reader is to add that area to our area tree by hitting the plus icon. This door is going to be the security office. So we're going to call it the security office. Area type, if it's your first time opening up System Manager on your client computer or on your server, this will say please select or click to choose, something like that. Area type is going to be normal. There are other options: 2-person area team, 2-person area schedule. Most of the time you're going to be using normal. And then area state, normal access, lockdown, strike. Again, 99% of the time you will be using normal access. We will hit next, and you can automatically add this to an area set if you're using area sets. So you can add the area sets and choose which ones that you want to add it to. I'm not going to in this situation, but you could select, in our case, the test area set, hit OK, and then that would show up here and hit next. Once you have that selected, you can hit finish, and now your area is created. So to actually program the reader, we will be going to the hardware map. Within the hardware map, there are several sections. The edit sim is going to be used when you're first setting up your system to create the sim. Then you would add the sim port underneath that. And as you can see over here on the right in our hardware map, you can expand these. So here's your sim level. Ours is called the SMS sim. Then you have the sim port. We'll expand that. And then you're at your controller level. So the top to bottom matches on the left here as it would on the right. So now we're at the controller level. This door we're going to be adding to controller 1, so we're going to expand that. And you can see as you go from the different levels, it's adjusting this bottom half of the screen. So when we're on the sim level, you see that sim selected down here. We move to the sim port, and you see the sim port change down here as well. The controller level, you see the controllers that you have programmed, which will show you the controllers and any sub-controllers, which would be your gateways or your PIMs as well. If we were to expand controller 2, you would see the gateway, which is programmed as a controller attached to another controller. And then if you expand that, you see, in this case, NDE locks attached to that. It could be AD400 wireless locks if it's attached to a PIM, which you would see here for the office level, AD400 locks attached to a PIM, attached to a controller. In this case, for the security office, it's going to be a reader interface, which will be attached to the controller. You can see we already have several programmed to this controller. If you double click on one of these, you would see the programming assigned to that specific reader, including its channel number and address. In this case, we have 8 doors on channel 2, which fills up that channel on this 16-door controller. And we have 1 door, the office lockdown button, which is on channel 3, address 1. Our next controller that we're going to do, we're going to put channel 3, address 2. So whenever you have the edit reader selected, and again, if it's on controllers, you can select a reader to change that to reader, or you can hit edit readers, and that will ensure that you're on the edit readers section. We're going to hit the plus button in the bottom. We're going to type in the description of this door, which is security office. You can add notes if you'd like. We're going to attach this. We're going to choose where this reader is attached. You can do the controller tree and expand this and select your controller that way. Or you can go to controllers and select it from a list as well, whichever you prefer. We're going to select controller 1. Provides access to area. You want to make sure that this matches your description up here. It's going to default to the last area that you were editing. In our case, it was the office lockdown button. If you change the description up here, or the description up in the top is just that, it's just a description. This does not impact area access at all. This is where the area access would matter. If you have this named security office and this provides access to office lockdown button, even if you assign area access to security office, because it doesn't match here, anybody that has access to the security office would not be able to get into this door unless they have area access to the office lockdown button. We'll hit the 3 dots to open up this window and we'll select security office. So now those do match. In some situations, these may not match exactly. If you have a conference room that has 2 entrances, you may have provide area access to conference room, and your description may be conference room door A, conference room door B, but anybody that has access to that conference room would be able to get into both of those doors. For the reader model, you can go through this list to find the appropriate reader model. In our case, it's going to be the VRINX. We'll hit OK. Again, on your first time using the software, first time on your client, reader type and door type will probably be click to select. You will want to choose the standard reader in most cases. You can make it an entry reader, an exit reader. You can use elevator readers, anti-passback readers, etc. In our case, it's going to be the standard reader, and in most cases, it will be a standard reader. Door type, again, most cases it's going to be a pedestrian, but you can change it to vehicular or handicapped if needed. You also have area to add your own door types if needed. We're going to keep it at pedestrian. If you're using it as an anti-passback, you can change that time so that the reader won't accept another card read at that reader from that card holder for a certain amount of time. And then here's where you're going to set your channel and addressing. Like I said, the office lockdown button was 3.1, channel 3 address 1. So we're going to make this channel 3 address 2. Reader templates are good to automatically add a couple relays and 4 contacts to that reader. It also pre-programs that reader for things like an IPP, an interior push button toggle, interior push button lockdown. Using one of these 2 templates, it also enables lockdown mode on that reader. So if you did have a button or used a manual override to put that into lockdown mode, then only cardholders with that pass-through option selected, which we covered in the cardholder definitions video, would be able to use this reader in the event of a lockdown. You can choose no device and program those contacts and relays on your own, but the software does have these pre-programmed templates that makes it very easy, and you can go in there and edit those as well to make them do more like what you'd want them to actually do. We're going to choose template 723 IPv lockdown and hit OK. Degraded mode will allow this to work in the case of a power loss to the controller or network loss to the controller. It would allow it to work off the facility code if you have those applied to the controller. Keypad reader, you can select if the reader on the wall has a keypad and you want them to be able to type in a code, or in some instances you have a lockdown enables a card plus pin mode so that a card swipe only does not get them into the door, but you could swipe a card and enter a pin and that would allow you to get into the door. We're just going to select degraded mode and hit save and close. When you hit save and close, this window will pop up just saying choose what you want to duplicate from this template. We will leave all these selected so that it automatically adds these to the other areas of the software so that we don't have to manually create the automatic overrides or the manual overrides, event triggers, contacts, relays, all of that stuff. We want all of that to be copied over. We'll hit OK. And now Security Office is added to this controller. If you expand this, you will see these first 2 are the relays that are pre-programmed. The Go relay, which is typically going to be your strike The activate relay can be used to program a annunciator if you have an alarm on that door, or it can be used for another relay nearby that door that's needed. The 4 contacts that are pre-programmed using that template are the interior push button, the request to exit, the push button override, and the DoD. If you double click on these doors, you can see which relay they're actually programmed to on the reader interface. The Rex is always going to be input 1. The door contact will always be input 2. And then you have your push button override on input 3 and the interior push button on input 4. These can be changed to do other things. The Rex input, you do always want to keep at input 1, as the boards, the Vanderbilt reader interfaces do have some programming on input 1 to be a Rex. So if you are going to use a different button for something else other than a push button or interior push button, I would stick with 3 or 4. Again, your door contacts can go to input 2. Each of these do come with this template with built-in programming. So if you highlight the Rex or double click the Rex and then hit this gear icon on the bottom, you can see what will happen when the Rex is activated. In this case, it is going to disable contact reporting and contact triggering on the door contact. It's going to energize the go relay, which in most cases is going to be your electric strike, and it's going to turn the reader green for, in this case, 3 seconds. So it's going to energize the strike for 3 seconds, turn the reader green for 3 seconds, signifying that that door is unlocked, and it will allow that person to exit the door without creating a door forced open. The push button override is going to be the same programming. When that's activated, it's going to shunt the door contact for 30 seconds. It's going to energize the go relay for 3 seconds and turn the LED green. This could be a door release button that the office has if they're unlocking the front door for somebody for delivery, or if it's a school, a parent coming in, they may have a push button or a video door station that is tied into this reader that they can press a button. It'll unlock that door without them having to actually go to the door and let that person in. The door contacts, by default, if it's a forced open, it goes active. Again, it's going to use the activate, which in a lot of cases may be a local annunciator on that relay. The door forced open would trigger that. It'd activate the relay 2, which is the activate relay, to sound that annunciator. If it's held open for more than 30 seconds by default, it would generate a door held open command in the transaction monitor, just signifying that that door is propped open. Using the 723 template that we used to create this reader, the interior push button is going to be programmed for lockdown. So if that input 4 goes active, it's going to put this specific reader into lockdown mode. If you don't want that to do that, if you want to use this for something else, you can select this, hit the minus, and delete that programming within it. Then you could hit a plus and you can add something else that you want it to do. So if we're going to do another different type of contact transaction, we would select that. We would select what type of contact transaction we want to see. Most cases, a contact active. Select the time zone, enter a description. So always, we want this to be active always. If you select a different time zone, say a 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. time zone, it's only looking for a contact active during that time. If it has a contact active at 6:30 a.m. before that 7 a.m. time zone, it's not going to do anything. It's only looking for that time zone or a contact active within that active time zone. You can enter in a description. We'll just say test for now, hit save and close, and then you would program the event triggers for what you want this reader to do when this contact goes active. That could be used as a push button for another door. You could have this contact active being a door unlock button for another door within that controller. or a toggle button for another door on that controller, or you can have it be a lockdown button for every door on this controller. If you are trying to control a door on another controller, so this is on controller 1, you're trying to control a door on controller 2, then you would have to use universal triggers for that and a manual override set, which we will go over in another video. Universal triggers is used for commands that take place across multiple controllers. Inherently, you can only control, with these, you can only control doors within the same controller that door is programmed to. So that is everything needed for programming a reader interface. If you were to program a different model of door lock, say an NDE lock, an LE lock, 8400, 8300, you would program to, in the case of 8400 NDE and LE, you would program to a gateway or to a PIM. The programming would be the same steps, except for you would choose, whenever you're programming the reader, instead of programming the reader to the controller 3, in this case, you would program it to the controller 1, the PIM 1, and then your reader model would be at 8400 instead of VRINX. You can choose again what specific type of 8400 or an 8400 993 exit trim. You would select whichever is appropriate, and then you again would select the reader template. Again, by default, I typically choose the IPB lockdown, and then you could always go in if the 80 lock does have an interior button and you do not want it to put that reader into lockdown, I would still use that IPB lockdown template so that you create the pass-through lockdown mode and pass-through options for that lock, and then go into the interior push button, hit the gear icon at the bottom, and just delete that programming out of that specific contact. But then you still get the lockdown mode, you still get the pass-through, which most people would like in these type of locks. So that concludes System Manager for programming a reader. Please join us for our next training session.